Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Convert. Today I got Robby, and today I'm in the driver's seat. So basically today we're just going to be talking about follow-up strategy. And so,
by the way, are we in Europe? You're on the right side.
Oh.
Get it? Driver's seat.
That's a corny ISA joke for you.
I had to break the I can't even say it.
Yeah, this is what happens when you have introverts lead
this is
videos.
Awkward. We're awkward.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
All
Sorry.
right. So basically, I wanted to give you guys some background and kind of talk about where we started and the follow-up game. So to give you guys some background on me, I was in the corporate world. I was at Microsoft. I was doing inside sales there for public sector with Dynamics. So what that means is basically large accounting purchases for people like sheriff's departments, schools, things like that. And so if I was going to segment my follow-ups, if I had a good conversation with you, but you're a small mom and pop's shop or you're a small county, maybe you have 3 users, that's not going to be as valuable to me as like a Dade County that has thousands of users and literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue per year. And so when I came over, Robby, what were your like January to June of 2014 like?
Utterly insane, praying and spraying with dials. And I think at that point I probably had 900 to 1,000 follow-ups and zero organization to it. Outside, every person had a targeted rough follow-up date. I mean, that's only a somewhat good thing I had, but that was it.
Yeah, but and how were you tracking that? I mean, we were tracking it in an Excel spreadsheet, right?
Dude, yeah, let's not even talk about it.
Yeah, it wasn't anything in a system or anything like that. And so today we're really going to talk about the changes we made that we realized because we were exhausted. We were so tired at that point because each of us had 800 to 900 follow-ups at any one time. The most I've ever had, I think, was 1,800, which is way too many for one person. And what we had to do is really figure out, how do we systemize this? How do we make it easy for you as a new person coming in, or anyone that's new coming in, or anyone that's established as well? How do we make this easy? How do we make it easy for people to understand and to implement?
And one of the other pain points was we got sick of losing.
Yeah.
Because we had all these follow-ups, and we would follow up, and they would say that we missed out. And not to say that you're going to eliminate all.
You're always going to lose.
But we were losing far, far, far too often. So that's another main reason, another pain point, literally why we created this, I think you could say.
Yeah, and so basically, Robby, talk to us about the system then. I mean, talk to us about our follow-up system. How do you kind of classify stuff, or how many different categories are there?
Yeah, so before I even get into that, I want to tell a story that kind of illustrates a pain point because you gave a really good example of the Microsoft point of view. I'll give a story of the real estate point of view. So let's say we had 2 different leads, right? We're going to call one Sam, and we're going to call the other, let's go, Jerry. Okay, really cool name, Sam and Jerry. So we'll go with Sam and Jerry. Sam is a lead I spoke to a year ago, right? And Sam tells me that they're thinking about potentially buying a home 1 year from now, give or take. And I schedule a follow-up for Sam, and it's for roughly a year from now. Because usually when we're having conversations with leads, oftentimes, usually that lead will tell us that they're waiting a year because, a very legitimate reason. Let's say that they've said that they're looking to retire from the school system, and they can't retire for a full year. So anyways, Sam is in there. I scheduled that follow-up for 1 year after, right? The other one, Jerry, Jerry's someone I spoke to a week ago, and we had a really great in-depth conversation. And what had happened was, we would accidentally have these lists of follow-ups. When you have 1,000, 1,800 follow-ups, you basically just have a running list of people you need to be calling every single day. And what would unfortunately happen is that follow-up list could become 30, 40, 50, 100 people in a given day. And what would accidentally happen is we would have people like a Sam, where, I spoke to him a year ago, they're a decent opportunity long-term. I would accidentally call that person and forget to call Jerry. And that's because there's just too many of them. If there's 100 in a day, sometimes you can't get to all of it. And what we found, or what I found, and you found as well, is we would call Sam too often, and we would accidentally miss calling Jerry. Now, what stinks about that, of course, is if you don't call Sam back, right, exactly 1 year later, Sam's not going to care. They don't care at all whether it's 365 days later or 390. They're not going to notice any difference. And you're probably not going to lose because of that. If you called Jerry back 2 weeks after you said you would, that's money out the window. So huge pain point was we got sick of losing in that respect. So I just wanted, anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think you brought up a good point. The other point I would say is, how many times would you try to call back Jerry compared to a Sam?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what would happen too, is not only were we kind of handcuffed on who do we call, but how many times we call. And so basically that's where Robby and I came up with this system of how to label stuff. And it's so easy. It's just dumb. It's just, you can call it 1, 2, 3, 4. We call it A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter what you call it. You just have to know what is
the beautiful ABCD follow-up strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally super simple. So Robby, talk to us about it.
Yeah. So realistically, what we're trying to do is prioritize. So what we do is we organize leads into A. As you can see on the screen, we got A, and generally that is anyone that is someone we think will convert in the next 0 to 30 days.
And when you say convert, do you mean meet for an appointment or actually close?
I would say meet for an appointment.
Okay.
They want to begin the process within the next 30 days. B's would be 30 to 90, C's would be 90 to 180, and D's 180 plus. So basically anything long-term would be a D opportunity.
Yep. Okay.
So realistically, I don't think those numbers matter that much. If you want to use different numbers, different parameters, I think the point is you got to be prioritizing and organizing all those follow-up opportunities into those different groupings.
Yep. And so if a person starts out as an A, are they always an A, Robby, or how did we kind of talk about that downgrade and upgrade?
I think for a while we were just keeping them as an A. I think a really good question I've always asked people is, if you call someone 50 times and they were an A, are they still an A? Absolutely not. They've ghosted you, right? So it's not worth your time. So I think what you have to have is you got to have some type of upgrade, but downgrading mechanism where somebody you've called, you basically move them down so you're not prioritizing them over actual A opportunities. Your A's should really be your creme brulee. I'm a big creme brulee fan. It should be your highest quality follow-ups, and really just moving them down. And I think the other thing we got to look at is how often we're calling these people back, right? Because you hit on that of, it's not just enough to organize them, it's also how much effort are you putting into establishing recontact, or re-engaging them. And if you want to look at it, our A's, we try twice per week. Our B's once per week, C's once per month, and D's bi-monthly. So really what that really means is the A's are getting a heck of a lot more effort put into them than the D opportunities.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, Robby, because I think there's been a lot of confusion about what we just said in the past. So when you're saying 2 times a week, what do you actually mean by that? Walk us through.
Sure.
Let's say I talked to someone. Let's say I talked to Jess last week.
Yeah.
And she said, call me next Thursday.
Sure.
Talk to me about the actual process. When you say 2 times, can you call her next week?
Great question. So the stuff you see, the 2 times per week, 1 time a week, once a month, bi-monthly, only takes into effect after you've called the first time that's a customized date that you have chosen. So in this case, you told me that I should be calling this person back 1 week later on that Thursday, give or take, right? So I'm not going to call twice per week. I'm going to call them back on Thursday or text back, right? We're seeing a lot of it where it used to be call-based follow-ups. Now it's becoming more text-based. But you would text or call back, reach back out on that Thursday. If they don't answer, what you're going to do is you're going to reach back out twice per week. If they were a D opportunity, you would not reach back out for 60 days. Really what it comes down to is, because this is where we're, in our other videos we've talked about balancing efficiency, effectiveness. What we're doing is we're saying, let's be a heck of a lot more effective and put more time into our A's than we do our D's. So I think really what it comes down to is that first, to sum all that, first attempt, that first follow-up call is customized. You choose it, I choose it, whenever the heck we want based off the conversation we have. Now, inevitably, what happens is a lot of those aren't successful. the person doesn't answer, the person doesn't text you back that first time, and you got to continue the chase. You shouldn't just give up on it. And what we're really saying is pour more time into those A opportunities and the D opportunities.
Yeah. So let's say, we set up a call.
Yeah.
We're supposed to call next week. We call next week twice. Nothing happens. We call the following week twice. Nothing happens. We call the week after that twice. Nothing happens. What do we go with then?
Yeah, you definitely, this comes into play where someone's not always an A. They don't stay an A forever, right? You got to downgrade it. And I think a really easy way to put it is after 4 legitimate attempts, 4 phone calls, I would downgrade it.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to use exactly 4 calls like we are. If you want to use 3 or 8, it doesn't matter. What matters is you have some type of mechanism that after X attempts, for us again, it's 4 attempts of being an A lead, we're going to downgrade you from an A to a B. And that achieves 2 things. One, you become a lower priority. So I'm going to call those B leads if that follow-up pops up after I only call my A's.
Yep.
And then the other thing is I'm only going to reach back out now once per week as opposed to twice weekly. So the amount of time I'm pouring into that lead, I'm reducing. So that's really the big thing. The downgrade mechanism for us is 4 attempts, and it's going from an A to a B, B to a C. And then, of course, we also downgrade them out completely.
Yep.
Another thing is what we call failed follow-ups, where basically if somebody goes through that, they get downgraded out after being a D lead. You don't want to keep it as a D for no reason forever.
Right.
Take it out of your follow-ups. And if I can advocate for anything, most people need to be a little more conservative on what's an A, and they need to be a little more liberal in downgrading people out of the system.
I would agree.
So
yeah,
that's my thoughts on it.
I mean, just from my perspective, with most of my C's or D's, I'm not giving you guys permission to do this, but this is what I do is I don't really call them that much. I put them into Erasa or I put them into Structurally in Homes.
Yeah.
And I let that system do the work for me because that system keeps in contact with them.
Yeah.
And then when they raise their hand, I get notified, and that just allows me to really concentrate on my A's and B's and new leads, and that's where 90% of my money is.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing, if you don't have that, you can just use an automated campaign as your safety net, right?
Yep, exactly.
It's not going to be as good at all as you reaching out, but this is where we're balancing calling these people, using automation to be your safety net to make sure things aren't slipping through the cracks.
Right.
But the whole point is you shouldn't just have a big pool of your follow-ups like we did. Because what would happen is we would accidentally call Sam's over and over and over again and forget about Jerry's. And the whole point is Jerry needs that contact way further. It's a lot higher quality opportunity. If you don't call that person back, if you're accidentally letting Sam get the call before Jerry, you're lighting money on fire. We've easily wasted accidentally hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunities until we created this and abide by it. And of course, it's easy to talk about being simple today. Wasn't even a flicker in our eye a while back, or a speck in our eye.
And we've seen the pendulum swing a lot of ways too, where it's either basically people are downgrading way too quickly, which has happened with some of the ISAs I've trained, where basically it's that first year that they see that 6 months mark and they get rid of half their pipeline. Yeah. And they don't put it on any automation plan, and that's the bad part of it. Yep. The other part is they just don't really have any sort of follow-up system, and they're calling everything. Yep. And neither of those is effective. You have to have a happy balance, and this pendulum will swing one side or the other all the time. Yep. But it's about trying to stay consistently in the middle.
Exactly. And to hit on one thing I see, and you already brought it up, we're going to literally circle back around to it again because it's still, we're going to catch a few people watching and like, oh, that just clicked. Yep. Your first call that you schedule your follow-up is custom. You choose it. If there's a D lead, somebody that you find out is not looking to do anything for at least 12 months, you're not going to call back bi-monthly starting right away. No. Your first follow-up is a custom date that you choose. So whether that's 6 months later, 9 months later, 12, whatever it is. What's the longest follow-up you've scheduled, by the way?
Like scheduled out?
Yeah. What's roughly the longest?
18 months.
Yeah, I was going to say that's roughly mine too, 18 months. And then, of course, shortest is an hour sometimes.
Yeah, literally. Yep.
So that's kind of, I think we hit on the major stuff.
Yeah, I think we hit on all the main points. You got anything else to to say before we head out of here?
You know, one last thing I would probably just chew on is emphasizing being very conservative with what is an A.
Yeah.
Like your A should be your greatest opportunities. Your B should be really good opportunities. Your C should be meh opportunities, and your D's are those are very descriptive, right?
Yeah, make a T-shirt with
that.
that.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to probably be the facial expressions. But the point is that your A should be really reserved. Your A should probably have the smallest amount of leads on it.
Yeah.
B's a little bit bigger, C's bigger, and then
You
D's.
think an A is like 7 to 10% of your leads, I'm guessing, if not less?
Less, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, from the people that I've spoken to, less probably than 5%.
Yeah.
A lot of D's, and frankly, it's okay. The other big thing is this, is when it comes down to it, because you're using a combination of the tag here that we've talked about, or label, whatever your CRM allows for, and a follow-up date. If your D's are past due by 10, 15, 20, 30 days, I don't care.
I don't care.
Doesn't matter. Your A's, if I walked in and I saw that Jim had a bunch of past due A's, something is wrong,
Yep.
majorly wrong. D's, doesn't matter at all. And that's the whole point of it. So really, what this is doing is it's actually giving you permission to not do some work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't do the work, but it's okay to prioritize some things over others.
And we always look at probability, not to geek out too hard, but what's the probability of an A going with someone else because you didn't talk to them when you're supposed to? And what's the probability of a D becoming an A?
Yeah.
Because I know there's some people think of that too, of like, you're not checking after your Ds. That's a big chunk of your database. A D to me is like someone that literally cannot buy or sell right now because of credit, because of their year out, things like that. And I've vetted it as well and find out, hey, are they a D, or would, if they had the right house, would they actually move forward with it?
Yeah.
And so the probability of a D becoming an A is so small, I am willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
I am not willing to take the risk that an A is going to call someone else because I didn't call them.
And then the one, to throw a kink into this, I always love doing this. These numbers are guidelines.
Yeah.
There are times where you're going to be calling a follow-up, and you're going to schedule that first initial call for 18 months later, and you might not schedule it as a D, even though the numbers that we gave earlier, the guidelines said that should be a D. Sometimes it makes sense to put that as probably not an A, but a B opportunity.
Exactly.
A really good example is if you're talking to that school principal who's really excited about retiring in 2 years, and you want to pick up the conversation 18 months from now because they're not doing it. They're 0%, nothing's going to happen. You spoke for 7-10 minutes about that. There's no point in putting that as an A opportunity probably, but there's also, that's not a D opportunity.
No,
so
it's the opportunity at the time of the callback.
Correct. And the quality of it.
Yeah.
It's balancing all of this. So you can't just use the quantitative. You also have to take into account what the heck do the notes say? What does the conversation say? And this is where your judgment comes into play, where you balance it where, you might have someone that you're not calling back for 18 months, but it's going to be an B opportunity, even though this just said to be a D.
Yeah.
So just take that into account, that it's a guideline to use. It's okay to deviate from that. And it might make sense that someone's an A opportunity in 18 months, or that might make sense for some people. But again, be conservative with that. And then, of course, you can deviate from it. This is a guideline.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good stopping point. So I think to give some priorities from this, or to give some feedback from this, or points of contention, that makes sense a lot of times. That's the thing, guys. So I think start with one area of your pipeline. I would recommend follow-ups.
Yes.
Start there, fix that, move on to the next. Make some sort of system. Doesn't matter if it's A, B, C, or D, 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. And then from there, use your gut.
Yeah.
Like, here are the guidelines on the days until they're actually ready to sit down, but use your gut as well.
Yeah.
So, anything else, Robby?
I think that's it, man. I think you crushed it.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for watching Systemize Your Database and follow-up plans and everything else today. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Thanks, guys.